This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by SaneBox, the best way to take control of your out-of-control email. For a free trial and a $10 credit, visit sanebox.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have a bit of a sleep-deprived Joe Kissell back with us to talk about a bunch of Take Control book updates. Joe, it's great to see you. Can you see us is the question.
Yeah. I can just about make out that audience of thousands through this little lens. Yeah, so we had a baby.
Congratulations.
About a month ago, and he's awesome. He's cute and he's healthy. His name is Devin, and we like him a whole lot. Also, he fusses all night long. So, I am, loving being a dad. Been a dad for quite a long time, but next round, and I love it, but man, if you have, so I'm just going to put this out there, like if you or if anyone listening to this has any extra sleep, you just go ahead and pop it in the mail, send it to me. I could use like all donations of sleep. Oh man, so it's rough because in the last month, I have only been able to write like an average of maybe one book a week. So it's brutal on my productivity.
Joe, we may have come up with one of the first new business opportunities that people have overlooked for a long time. Sleep by mail. I like it.
That's right. Yeah.
I like it. So we have a number of books here to talk about that are either have been upgraded or are in the process of being upgraded.
Yeah. So, what happened was, right before the baby was born, I was talking with Adam and Tanya about sort of, what my next priorities were. And I always have new books in the queue. But the suggestion was that since there's going to be some stretch of time during which you probably won't be able to sit down and concentrate on a book for many, many hours on end, why don't you do some projects that you can kind of dip into, just an hour here, a half hour there, and just cross them off your list. So we had a whole bunch of these things, and I don't know exactly when this will air, but there are 4 books that I have updated to either a smaller or larger amount, and they either have come out by now or will be out imminently. So what I mainly want to talk about today is those 4 updates, and then we can move on to some other stuff.
Okay, well now, let's see if I can get it right. The updates that are out are Take Control of iCloud,
yes,
Take Control of Dropbox, which is probably where we'll spend most of our time,
right,
Take Control of 1Password,
right,
for obvious reasons, and
right.
The one that's not out as we record this, but may be out any time or will be, Take Control of your Paperless Office.
That's right, yeah.
All right, good. I got them all 4. That's great. So let's get the easy one out of the way first. Take Control of iCloud.
Yeah.
What can I say? I love the fact that you're keeping this, along with all the other books, up to date, because all of those are pretty important topics.
Yeah, I mean, it's irritating. It used to be, back in the olden days, when we would write about software that you download or software that you buy on a disk, you can kind of rely on the fact that it's going to remain relatively the same for some period of months. But when you're writing about a cloud service like iCloud, Apple can just change anything at any time, and they do. And so all right then, 3, 2, 1. So a book on a cloud service, whether it's iCloud or Dropbox, tends to go out of date a lot, and so we try to do the best we can to keep them updated with the latest stuff. Most recently, Apple released OS X 10.9.3, and that brought back a feature that a lot of people wanted. It actually isn't an iCloud feature, but I mention it in the iCloud book as an alternative to using iCloud. It used to be that you could sync your iPhone or iPad or whatever directly to your Mac for contacts and calendars, using iTunes. And then Apple took that feature away in Mavericks. Well, they brought it back in 10.9.3 in a slightly different form. So for those people who are uncomfortable or for whatever reason unable to use iCloud for syncing contacts and calendars, there's now another way. So I talk about that in the book. Talk about some troubleshooting documents in the cloud. A weird thing that Apple also took away, and I really don't know why. There used to be, when Mavericks first came out, there used to be a preference in Safari for both Mac and iOS to, like, if there was a website where autofill for iCloud keychain didn't work because the site was trying to, have extra security, like to disallow password managers, that you could override that. Of course, it didn't work on iCloud.com, but whatever. Anyway, Apple took away that preference to override sites that didn't want to use a password manager, and it's unclear whether that means they're just automatically overriding everything or never overriding anything. But anyway, they took away the preference, so I talk about that. And talk about the fact that as of 10.9.2, iCloud Keychain supports secure notes. So none of that stuff is really big or exciting, but anyhow, the book is up to date now. And well, as of,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Joe, sometimes I think you and a lot of people give short shrift to the idea that, well, these are minor features. If these are features that are important to me, then they're major. So, I'm with you, maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but if you are interested in secure notes and putting things in iCloud that, don't just fit the password model, that, what can you do? I mean, you can put emergency phone numbers in, you could put your credit card numbers in so that if you lose the credit card, you have somewhere to go get them. So those can be very important features if you are savvy enough to use them. Sure.
It's the sort of thing where if you didn't know it was there, you might not just stumble across it, and a lot of people do find it interesting. It's just that from my point of view, as one of hundreds of things I talk about in the book, I wouldn't say, and if you weren't going to buy the book before, well, this is the reason you should buy the book, because of those two new sentences.
Right.
But,
Hopefully they're a little more than that. So that's Take Control of iCloud. Take Control of 1Password is the next one I want to get to, simply because passwords have been in the news now for several weeks in such a big way, and it seems like it's never going to go away. It's just going to get more important to keep this stuff up to date.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most recently, eBay, gigantic hack, all kinds of information leaked out. And, I have this presentation that I do on passwords, and there's a slide about, listing all the major companies that have had these atrocious password breaches. And every time I do this presentation, I have to update that slide because now some new company, it's not just Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Now I get to add eBay to the list. So yeah, there's always something. And then before that, there was the Heartbleed SSL vulnerability. And that was, that was a huge thing. And I don't think we've even completely recovered from it yet. But basically, a lot of websites that used HTTPS, and people thought they were secure because you get the little lock in your address bar or whatever. Turns out they weren't secure after all because there was this bug. So I have changed I don't know how many passwords to deal with this problem. One of the newest changes in 1Password is that they built in. They have this service that they call the Watchtower service, which basically looks for sites that either are or were subject to this SSL bug. And so basically, as you're using 1Password, it alerts you, oh, by the way, you should really change this password right away, or this site has been compromised and it's not safe to change your password yet, or whatever. So for anyone who is concerned about that bug, and really everybody should be, it's a good way to know which sites you ought to change your passwords for, and of course, use really great, long, random, complex passwords. And as I don't recommend just changing your passwords every so often just because the logic sort of doesn't work out. But when you know or suspect that there's been a breach, absolutely change your passwords. for any affected sites, and this is one of those cases where we know there has been a problem, and 1Password can help you sort out which ones actually need to be dealt with. So that was the sort of biggest thing in 1Password. I'm just looking over my list here of other changes. 1Password has had a lot of updates since version 4. They've rearranged some of the UI, fixed bugs, added missing features. 1Password Mini, which sort of lives normally up in your menu bar, has been changed a lot, has new features. Syncing is a bit better. There's a great new feature. This used to be the case a long time ago, and then it went away, and now it's back, and I'm so happy about this. Let's say you have a password for Apple, and maybe have multiple Apple passwords. One that you'd use for store.apple.com, but a different one that you'd use for developer.apple.com. And so what would happen was you go to either one of those sites and you press the command / fill in my password now, and 1Password would be like, which one? You have a lot of Apple passwords. And I'm like, well, the one that's specifically says developer.apple.com, of course, that one that matches that subdomain. But for a while, that wasn't working. You'd always get this list as long as the sort of root domain matched. So anyway, that's back now, so that's great. So if I have a specific password for one particular subdomain on a site where I have multiple accounts, just fill it in with a keystroke, and it's quick and easy, and I'm really happy about that. And the iOS version of 1Password has also had some changes, so I write about those. 1Password is still being actively worked on. There are new changes in the works for all the platforms, but I know in particular they're working really, really hard on a new Android version and a new Windows version. So I've seen beta versions of both of those. I don't know when they'll be released, but of course I'll update the book to talk about those too. But basically, trying to make sure that anyone who has the book finds it to be a useful ongoing reference, even though the software is changing quite regularly.
And this is as good a time as any to say that if you haven't adopted a password manager, and especially if it's 1Password, now's the time. The book is currently as up to date as you're going to get, and just do it. Please, please, please. Don't keep walking around out there with passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, and your middle name. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, I like that word, adopt a password manager. We were at the Memorial Day parade, and the SPCA had a little adopt a puppy thing set up there, and you can see the dogs and whatever. And I think they ought to have Agile Bits ought to have a little booth where they have little very, very young password managers that haven't been trained very much, but they're cute, and you could actually just pay a small fee to adopt them, and then you could take them home and feed them your passwords. And this metaphor is going to expire in about 2 seconds, so I got.
I think we may want to take a break here and let Joe get some sleep and come back.
This is what happens, man. This is what happens. I don't sleep.
Okay, so that's 2 out of 4.
Yeah.
So let's go to, I guess, the third one. I'm going to skip around the big one. Take control of your paperless office. This one is not out as we record this, but will be coming. Joe, this is another topic, though, that I'm surprised you feel like you can put a stake in the ground and say, okay, I'm going to update it at this moment, just because there's so much stuff that is always coming out when it comes to going and being paperless.
Yeah, well, there's never a good moment. It's like all the stuff we do in the tech world. There's always going to be another update, another version of the iPhone, a new Mac, another version of OS 10, another gadget. I mean, there is. But every time I write a book, the book comes out, and I start a list. Someone will write to me and say, "Oh, did you know about such and such?" Or "I really wish you'd write about this," or "I found a typo," or a manufacturer will come out with a new scanner, or whatever. Stuff happens. So I add it onto my list, and when the list gets to be of a certain length, I'm like, that makes me uncomfortable, because now there's too much in the book that doesn't match the real world. So this is just one of those cases where I felt like, I mean, the information in the book is good, it's fine, it's useful, but some stuff has changed, and I wanted to make sure that that as much as possible it reflects the real world. Now, I will say, I'm kind of patting myself on the back for something I did with this new edition, which was, way back when it first came out. I made online appendixes for like lists of scanners and lists of scanner software, because this is the stuff that really changes all the time, and it's much easier for me to just update a line in a table on a web page than it is for me to update the whole book. So a lot of that stuff I've been able to keep up to date without actually messing with the manuscript itself. But anyway, in version 2.1 of Take Control of Your Paperless Office, so let's see here. I talk about, there are these online aggregators of what do I call them? Online statements. So places where you can go to one website and say, now I want you to download all of my different statements from my utilities and my banks and my credit cards and all that kind of stuff, and put them all in one place, and do that automatically, so I don't have to manually go to all these different places. So there are a number of those. I added another one that I hadn't previously mentioned called HubDoc. I mentioned Square Cash. So, I talk about all these ways of simplifying your financial life with gadgets. And I had previously talked about using a Square Reader, the little thing that plugs into your iPhone for reading credit cards. But since then, Square Cash has emerged, where you can just basically send somebody an email to email the money, and I've used it. Have you used it? Have you used Square Cash?
No, I have not.
It is magical. It is so cool. So, I got some concert tickets for a bunch of friends and I, and the other folks paid me using Square Cash, and basically all they do is you go onto the website, or you use an iPhone app, and you just say, I want to send this amount of money to this email address, and a few days later the money shows up in my bank account. It's just, it's really cool. It's so easy, and there's no transaction fees either. So way easier than messing with credit cards or debit cards. Very cool. Anyhow, I talk about this in the book. Some new features on Fujitsu's scanners, a program called PDF Filer, like PDF Filer. I think they could have done a little bit better with that name, but anyway, PDF Filer that helps you rename scanned PDFs. Now there's Microsoft OneNote that's sort of competing with Evernote and the like for storing snippets of stuff online. Talk about that. The IRS has weirdly changed the destination for where you go to find out about record keeping requirements. So I had to change that. And one of the other things that maybe not, again, it's not like a big deal, but it was an irritant to me. A number of months ago, less than a year, I forget exactly when it happened, there was a change in the way the iTunes store handled affiliate links. So they used to use LinkShare, this third-party service. So basically, if I recommend, let's say, an iPhone app or something, and somebody were to follow that link and buy it from Apple, then I would hypothetically get a few pennies of a commission for that. Anyway, Apple stopped using LinkShare and started using a completely different service or completely different method to do these affiliate links, with the result that every product I mentioned that was sold on the App Store, either for Mac or iOS in the book, and there were dozens and dozens of them, all those links broke. So, so I had to recreate all those links. Thanks, Apple. But anyway, the links will work now.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, that's good. If I mean, there are a number of little subjects in there that already make me want to go and pick the book up, or pick it up when it comes out, I should say. So
it doesn't weigh very much.
It doesn't weigh very This edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by SaneBox, the best way to take control of your out-of-control email. For a free trial and $10 credit, visit sanebox.com/MacVoices. Some of you have emailed me asking about how SaneBox works for me, and how it can work for you. Like so many great services, SaneBox is simple and easy on the surface, but if you want to go just a little further, it has plenty of power just under the waterline. The first thing SaneBox does is take my incoming mail and send it to a few different folders. First, those messages that are important go straight to my inbox, just like normal. Where do the other emails go? Some go to the Sane Later folder, which is where the not-so-important emails go. The emails that don't fit the other categories, but don't make the grade for the inbox. The Sane News folder is where all my mailing list subscriptions and newsletters go, automatically. SaneBox knows what they look like and puts them there so I can look at them at my convenience and not have to weed through them in my inbox to find the really important stuff. Sane Bulk is for the emails that are receipts or are sent for reference. Receipts for my monthly web hosting bill, or my credit card, or any other bill that sends me a receipt, or order confirmations from Amazon. Anything of that nature drops in the Sane Bulk folder, not in my inbox. Those are some great examples and only part of the power of SaneBox. But what's even better is that if a particular newsletter or receipt is something that I need to see when it arrives, it's a simple matter to train SaneBox to send it to the inbox, every time. The same for contacts that are important. Just a click and SaneBox is trained to send it where I want it, in my inbox, for immediate attention. So what happens here is that as it comes in, my email is automatically characterized and dropped into the appropriate folder. That saves me time by making sure that only the important stuff is in my inbox, and that makes me more responsive because I'm not wasting time searching through a cluttered inbox looking for the important stuff. SaneBox has other useful features that we'll talk about next time, but for now, why wouldn't you visit sanebox.com/MacVoices, get a 14-day free trial, and find out how SaneBox can work for you? Better yet, after your trial, get a $10 credit free just for signing up via sanebox.com/MacVoices. That saves you money, and SaneBox will save you time. That's 2 for 2, so you're batting 1,000 right out of the box. Right out of the SaneBox. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Again, get a $10 credit when you sign up for SaneBox at sanebox.com/MacVoices. SaneBox, the best way to take control of your out-of-control email. Thanks to SaneBox for sponsoring this edition of Mac Voices. So that's 3. So now we get to the one that you have said is the biggest update of all, and that's Dropbox, which is an interesting fact because I guess maybe I haven't been paying attention to all the Dropbox news. What's new in Dropbox?
Well, I updated the book. And then there were I did the work on updating it in like early May, and then there was a couple of weeks before Tanya could get to the editing, and so she edited it, and she's like, "No, wait a minute, Joe, this isn't right, and this doesn't match, and this doesn't match." Dropbox had 2 updates between early May and late May between the time that I did the update and the time it was edited, so I had to go back and edit it again to account for those updated features, and they like move things around on menus and just all this stuff. So, again, it's one of those things where it's up to date at the moment. I don't know how long it'll stay up to date because what happens with Dropbox is they're changing stuff all the time, and if your software is working correctly, which of course it doesn't always, it'll just update itself silently in the background. It's not going to say, do you want me to install an update now? It's just going to do it. So you might just glance at your Dropbox menu one day and say, oh, no, that looks a little bit different, or where did this command come from, or where did that command go? So there's been a lot of that stuff going on in the Dropbox software, but also on the Dropbox website, where they've changed styles, they've moved things around, they've done stuff. So basically, I just went through everything and tried to make it up to date. There was a lot. I had to replace pretty much all the screenshots in the book, which hate doing screenshots. So time consuming. So that was sort of the impetus for the book, is just making sure that it's up to date with all the changes on the Dropbox site and all the changes in the software. So what were some of these changes? You may have heard, you don't really get into Dropbox for Business very much in the book, but there is now this new thing where if you have a personal account and a business account, you can have both open on the same computer, and you can see them all in one place, and your sort of personal stuff is kept in one folder and your business stuff is kept segregated in another folder, but you can use basically the same interface to get at both of them, so that's cool. There's photos are handled much differently now. So basically, if you go to the Photos link on the Dropbox website, it will show you not only the photos you've uploaded using the camera upload feature, but basically any photo or video anywhere in any folder in your Dropbox. So that's new and different. It's convenient, but also, there's a bit of a learning curve there. And there's now a carousel app for iOS that does the same thing. It shows you all of your photos wherever they may be in your Dropbox, and makes it easier to discover them and share them and so forth. So I talk about that. There are as I was telling you before the show, there have been so many changes, so many things that I don't have them all in my head, so I'm just consulting my notes here. Oh yes, so I wrote quite a lot about different scenarios for sharing folders. So you share a folder with someone in a read-write mode, so we both have access, we can both add things, delete things, change things. And there are a lot of weird situations you could get into where it's not obvious how things work. What happens if you've shared a larger folder and now you want to share a subfolder of that with someone else? So you can't really do that, and there are just all these weird situations where it's not clear how things work or how you can get the effect that you're looking for. So I give a bunch of examples of how different folder sharing scenarios work out. So I hope that's helpful. Another thing that Dropbox added, this was months ago, but this is before I updated the book last, they have now an iPhoto import option. So anything in iPhoto, if you have tens of gigabytes of stuff in iPhoto like I do, that can all go into your Dropbox, so that, oh my god, now I need to pay more money to have more storage space on Dropbox. Also, there's an option now for every time you take a screenshot, that can go directly into your Dropbox. Some people love that feature, some people hate it, but anyway, it's a new thing, and I tell you how it works and how to use it. I also talk about a thing called SpotDocks. Have you heard of SpotDocks?
No, SpotDocks?
Hey, this is kind of cool. So a lot of people are sort of, you get 2 gigabytes of storage space for free with Dropbox. You can pay for more, of course. But a lot of people are sort of uncertain, what do I spend that however much space I have on? Because I can't put everything on my hard drive in Dropbox. What am I going to put in there? What am I not going to put in there? And inevitably, you're someplace else, you're not at your computer, and the file that you need is one that you decided to put someplace else, not in your Dropbox. So SpotDocks is an app for your Mac that tries to solve this problem. So basically, you have a Dropbox account, you have Dropbox installed as usual. Now you install this other app also called SpotDocks. You log in, authorize your account, and so forth. And then what you can do from a website or an iOS app, or I guess, I don't remember, I think also from a Mac app, you're on another device, and you can then, the SpotDocks acts as a conduit. It uses Dropbox to access any file on your Mac. So I have something on my desktop, something that's not in my Dropbox. SpotDocks basically indexes that and it stores the index in your Dropbox. So you can say, oh, well, I know now that this file exists on my Mac in this place. Hey, SpotDocks, would you fetch that for me? And it sort of reaches through Dropbox and pulls it out. You have to kind of see it in action. It's a really, really clever thing. But anyway, the net effect is that you can make files available to yourself, any of the files on your Mac, through Dropbox, even if they're not actually stored in Dropbox. So anyway, it's a cool thing.
So I got to work through that just a little bit. So it sounds like it's almost like a virtual networking client kind of thing that doesn't really store the files anywhere, or am I really stretching with that?
I'm going to give you a fictionalized version here. Okay, this is not the actual way it works. This is sort of a pretend story that might help you visualize it better. Let's say it's just your desktop, and you have a bunch of files on your desktop. So I make a list, just like a text file with a list of the names of the files on my desktop, and I stick that in my Dropbox. With me so far? So now I can go to any other computer and look at that list. Let's say that there's an app running on my Mac that keeps an eye on that list, and it updates it by itself whenever it's necessary. And it also looks to see if there might be a checkbox, a check mark next to one of those names. And whenever it sees that checkbox, that check mark, it goes ahead and copies that one particular file into my Dropbox. So basically, it's software running on your Mac that lets you see, by way of Dropbox, where all your other files are, and when you specifically ask it for a file, it can deliver it to you. It can't obviously move all that stuff into your Dropbox, because then what will be the point? But it can use Dropbox as a conduit to find out what files you want and deliver them to you.
Okay, I think I got it. So it's not copying, or yes, it copies files into Dropbox then that I can retrieve, or if I'm on the Mac over there and I say SpotDocks, I want Joe Kissell's interview file that's on this Mac, does it download it directly without ever putting it in Dropbox? Did that make sense?
Now you've asked for a detail that I don't recall.
That's okay.
It does one of those two things.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I don't have that information in RAM. So
no, that's good. But that's the concept. That's one way or the other. I guess where I was going with that, the important thing in my mind would be, once I've retrieved it on the second Mac, is it still taking up space in my Dropbox?
I think that it isn't. But I wouldn't swear to that, because it's been a while since I investigated that detail.
Okay. All right. So then just go check it out, folks, and be aware.
Yeah, go check it out.
Be aware. Okay, so that's 4, and that's a lot, Joe. I mean, there are a lot of little details and obviously little features, but on the other hand, it all adds up to a lot of things we need to be aware of.
Yeah, well, I don't know how people read my books. In other words, I don't know if people download them and zip through them once and are like, okay, got it, I'll file this in a folder, or if they more sort of well, I'll just have this book, and whenever I have a question, I'll go look at the book as sort of a reference guide. So I don't know to what extent people use those different ways of doing it. I want to make sure that anyone who, if you sat down and read the book, you're not going to sit down and read the whole thing again just because I've added half a dozen new points of information. But to the extent that people use my books for reference or to answer questions about how do I do this or how does this thing work, I just want to make sure that they still match. I don't want anybody to go to the Take Control website thinking they might buy a book, and then they kind of look at it and go, well, I'm interested in this topic, but the last time this book was updated was 9 months ago, and 9 months ago, so much has happened since then. I know this app has been updated twice since then, or I know this website has been updated twice since then. So if it's been that long since an update, I don't know if this book is current. I don't want people to think that. I want people to feel confident that yes, we're on top of things, and these books are still live and valid and accurate.
So that's take control of 1Password, take control of iCloud, take control of Dropbox, take control of your paperless Office.
Right.
And that brings us up to date.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Synchronize our watches.
That's
yes.
right.
Yes. But we're going to get into, I guess, a little bonus area here. You wanted to tease another project and maybe ask for a few people's help on this or to get some ideas from them. So take it away.
Yeah. So sometimes I will talk with Adam and Tanya about an idea for a book, and maybe it's their idea, maybe it's my idea, maybe it's something somebody else has suggested. And we're all kind of like, yeah, that's a really great idea. We should do a book on that someday. And then, due to one reason or another, someday is months or years in the future. And eventually, we say, this thing that's been on our list for a long time, we're going to do that right now. We made that decision recently with one of the books on our list that's been on the list for a really long time, and the topic is automating your Mac. Take control of automating your Mac. I'm writing this book right now. This is an area of extreme interest for me. I have been automating my Mac in a dozen different ways for years and years and years. Ranging from really simple things like using LaunchBar and Text Expander and little utilities like that, to a macro utility like Keyboard Maestro, Apple Script, an Automator, and shell scripts, and basically anything. I've got kids. I've got 45 books to update. I'm a busy guy, so like anything that will save me time or effort, I'm all over it. And I'm always looking for ways of just making things quicker, easier, take less, fewer clicks, fewer keystrokes, do sequences of stuff for me so that I don't have to, manually do them myself. So I'm really excited about working on this title. We're really excited about Take Control of Automating Your Mac. I think it's going to be one of the most useful titles we've ever done. And, we already have a book on LaunchBar that was very popular. We already have a book on Text Expander that was very popular. So it's obvious that a lot of our readers are really interested in time-saving and labor-saving methods. And so this book talks about many, many, many more of them. The thing is, though, Take Control books are comparatively short. Like for us, 150 pages is a fairly long Take Control book. Some of them have gone over 200, but we don't write a 600, 800, 900 page Take Control book. That's just not what we do. I've written 900 page books, but not for Take Control. Well, my colleague Matt Newberg wrote a 600 page book on just Apple Script. I could write hundreds of pages on just Nicest Writer Pro macros. I could write hundreds of pages on just Keyboard Maestro or whatever. We have a book on LaunchBar, as I said, book on Text Expander. I can't write thousands of pages giving you exhaustive detail on everything you can do to automate your Mac, but I do want to give you as much as I can, and I especially want to tell you about the things that you, my prospective readers, are most interested in. So what I'd like to put out there is, if there is an automation topic that you would like to know more about, tell me. Please, Joe, spend some pages talking about this subject, and I'll see what I can do. Also, if there's something that you currently do to automate your Mac, whether it's a simple thing or a very complicated thing, I'm always looking for examples, for stories I can tell that illustrate what neat things you can do with automation. So tell me those stories too. And most of all, if there's anything regarding automating your Mac, whether it's setting up keyboard shortcuts, or whether it's using a macro utility, or whether it's anything at all that would have to do with a shortcut or making something simpler, anything that you find confusing or irritating. Well, yes, I tried using Launchbar or Text Expander or Keyboard Maestro or AppleScript, but I got hung up on this one thing. I'd really like to know where those spots are that you get hung up or you get confused, because that's what I do. I get people unstuck. So I'm really interested to know what your worries are, what your sources of confusion are, what your hopes and dreams are for automating your Mac, and as many of those things as you can tell me, I will try to cover in this book. Send me email, as I was telling Chuck earlier. If you can't figure out how to send me email without me actually saying my address, you shouldn't be using the internet. So
can I put it in a lower third for him, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm a pretty discoverable person on the internet.
Yeah, to say the least. Joe, I want to make sure we pin this down. So you ask for problems. Are you looking for projects, or are you looking for kind of big sky things about, well, I really don't know what I could do with automation on my Mac for, what the kind of everyday tasks that I do? Are you looking for edge cases? What kind of things are you specifically wanting?
Yeah, good question. So one thing I can't promise that if you ask a very specific question about automation, like I have this particular spreadsheet that I need to look up something in FileMaker Pro, and then I need to go to this certain website and get this piece of information. I need to stick it in this cell and this. I can't promise that I will be able to teach you how to do that very specific task, because that's probably something that you are the only person in the world who needs to do, and so I could figure it out, but then that wouldn't necessarily help anybody else. I'm interested to know. I mean, I do want to know what you're trying to accomplish, because that can inform the sorts of general things I talk about. I just can't guarantee that I'll be able to solve every specific problem. What I'm more interested in is the sort of the second part that you were saying is, well, yes, I have these tools, and I've read that how great they can be in theory, but I can never sort of come up with what I can really do with them. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to solve in this book, is to just make you get the wheels turning, make you aware. I want everybody to have a list of, like, oh, I just realized that I typed this word 4 times. I shouldn't have to do that. Or I just realized that this menu command that I use twice a day, I had to click 5 times to find that thing that I needed to click on. Whatever. I want people to start making lists of things that they need to automate. They wish they could automate. They wish they could find a simpler way to do. And I do hope to sort of spark people's imagination and get them to realize, oh, this is the sort of thing that I could really use Launchbar for. This is the sort of thing I could really use Keyboard Maestro for. This is the sort of thing that really might make it worthwhile for me to spend a couple of days learning some basic AppleScript. I'm not trying to turn anybody into a computer geek. I'm not trying to turn anybody into a programmer. Far from it. I'm trying to say these are simple things that ordinary people can do to just make their lives easier. So if there's something that you've always thought, well, I wish there were a way to do this sort of general thing, that would be prime for the book. I wish there were a way I could just click one button and then share this screen with this other particular Mac, instead of having to first go to the Finder, and then I scroll down this sidebar, then I click this, then I click that, and then if there's something that you've always thought, if only there were an easier way to do this, maybe I can tell you, as a matter of fact, there is an easier way to do that.
Okay. I can think of a couple cases of myself, but that's for offline discussion. Yeah. The text expander example is the classic one, because that's a form of automation, and you really don't think about the things that you type on a consistent basis over and over and over. And if you can stop and really kind of catch yourself doing it, then you can address it with a text expander snippet.
Yeah, it's been really enlightening for me to write this book, because I keep now that I'm in that mode of thinking, I keep coming up with these things. Ooh, I should write a macro that does this. Ooh, I should really have a snippet for that. Ooh, I should really, and then I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stop what I'm working on. I'm going to spend 15 minutes to make that, set that up. It's going to save me tons of time in the long run, but it's going to cost me some time right now. And so the book would have been farther along if I hadn't stopped to make all these really cool macros. But I'm telling people it's totally worth it. Like, you're going to say, man, I spent hours trying to figure out this routine to do this, whatever. I'm like, yes, you will. You're going to, especially at first when you're getting used to the tools, you're going to spend hours setting up an automation for something that is only going to take you a minute to do manually. But do the math. How many times are you going to spend that minute over the course of a year? And I gave an example of something that I automated that used to take me about 5 minutes a day, and I spent a whole day trying to automate it. But then, by the time this had happened now on its own without any intervention from me for like 3 months, I'd amortized all that time. So now I get 5 minutes a day extra to spend with my kids. That's totally worth it for me every day. And for, the rest of my life, I get an extra 5 minutes to spend with my kids because I spent that day automating this thing. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say, put on your propeller beanie and let's all learn AppleScript together and we're gonna come up with all these geeky ways to do. No, I mean, no, because I don't. I know some AppleScript, but it's more like I have a problem I need to solve. Let's figure out how to solve that problem and save myself some time.
And I think you're very wise there. I look at the sample Apple scripts that are out there for so many things, and for me personally, about 10% of them might be useful, just because they address things and they're very useful if you need to do that. But I don't need to do that, so why am I going to bother to learn it?
Right? Yeah. You don't want to start with the tool. Like who goes to like Home Depot and says, "Oh, I love this tool. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to try to figure out some project that I can do with this tool." I mean, I'm sure some people do that, but like for me, it's like, okay, well, I have to hang a bookshelf. So now I got to figure out what tools do I need to do that. And so like, it's great that all these fantastic, high-powered, clever tools exist, but that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you solving your own problems. And so you find out what problems you personally have, and then you just find the best tool for the job. And if it's an AppleScript, it's an AppleScript. If it's some other utility, or it's just a keyboard shortcut or whatever, it is what it is. But start with the problem, not with the solution.
So there you go, folks. Joe's email box is wide open. Go for it.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Joe, it's great to see you.
And by the way, I'll just say, I mentioned Square Cache.
Yes.
If you want to increase the chances of your thing getting into my book, or if you just want to try it out, you're just like, I wonder, is it really that easy to send $100? It can't be that easy. Let's try it.
Yeah. Joe, you're so selfless.
I do what I can.
You do just everything for your audience. I'm impressed.
That's right.
Hey, it's great to see you. I hope the sleep situation gets a little better.
Yeah. Well,
sooner or later.
In a few years, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, sooner or later. So one more time, take control of your paperless office, take control of iCloud, take control of 1Password, take control of Dropbox, and the upcoming take control of automating your Mac.
Yeah, and I should mention all those updates that we mentioned, they're all free. So if you already have the book, just go onto the Take Control site and download the new version. And if you don't have them yet, we'll be happy to take some of your money in exchange for them.
Great. We'll see you next time. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We will see you next time as well. And as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date with all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com.